Hi, everyone. My name is Harry. I am the CEO and co-founder of Zuno Carbon, and welcome to another episode of Forces of Nature. This is a series where we explore what it takes to be successful in the sustainability space. So today we have Yogesh. He's the Senior Director of Sustainability at HubSpot. And before I hand it over to him, I'll just start with a seed question so we can dive right in. You've been in this space for quite some time, so just curious to know how you got started in sustainability, and did you always know that you wanted to work in this space?
Hi, Harry. And well, first of all, thank you very much for being inviting me to be part of this interview. I guess I'm an old hand. I'm at the kind of mature end of those in sustainability, and actually, um, in the kind of it wasn't preordained in any shape or form. I guess you can call it one of stumbling in to the career. It was very much that. It was other than I guess the kind of the thread running through my career and through my life actually was a desire to affect change and to make the world a better place. I've always been driven by that since I was a teenager. And I guess whilst my career has chopped and changed and I've done many various things, that thread has remained throughout. And so, to answer your question, it was very much a fluke of accident, but that desire to make a difference and make the world a better place, however naive it sounds, is still something that I crave and work towards.
That's great to hear. I think passion is something that we see quite commonly across people in sustainability, and especially with regulations and compliance, it can be quite cumbersome. But it's good to see that spark is still there. That's actually a very good segue to my next question. So typically, when we talk to CSOs, people in positions to impact change, we see a lot of initiatives from manufacturing, energy, transportation, usually the major polluters. But the world of SaaS and technology may seem a bit removed from the space at first glance. So could you tell us a bit more about what sustainability means to companies like HubSpot?
Sure. Well, I guess these, the obvious impacts that we might have as a business. We employ 8,000 people. We have 12, 13 buildings across the world. And all of that has an impact, a physical impact on the environment. The more substantive aspect of our work is our value chain, whether it's upstream or downstream. And that's where a large percentage of our concentration is. So it's who are we, what are the suppliers we are using, say, for our cloud services, the data providers, what are they doing? Can we leverage any influence over those in terms of sustainability? And then looking downstream, it's about how is our product being used by our customers? Is there things that we can actually do? And I guess the kind of the wider question is, what is the impact of digitization? How are we enabling and supporting a more low carbon economy through the kind of acceleration of a digital economy? So if you look at what we do as a business, which is essentially marketing, we have helped it transform from a kind of paper based exercise around how you gain customers, how you manage your relationship with customers, how you do your invoicing, how you do your customer relationship, through to which is all very physical, through to a much more digitalized process. And that inevitably has a positive carbon aspect to it. So I think whilst on the surface, it might seem that we are a low carbon industry and a digital company, it doesn't really matter. It actually does matter. What is on the horizon, well, more than what's on the horizon, what's already here is the impact of artificial intelligence. So we are transforming into an AI first company. And as you will know, and as many of your listeners will know, is that artificial intelligence has more than 10 times the environmental impact of non-artificial intelligence use of technology. So where does that actually what role does that play? So I think there's a lot of interconnected issues here that are relevant to us as as a digital company.
Yeah, that's interesting because if we double click on that, I think digitalization has been catalyzed or sped up with COVID, with everyone going virtual, travel coming down. So we do see a positive in terms of sustainability. But as you said, the advent of AI and the prevalence of it also poses a question. So there's obviously the energy demands and that side of things, but on the pro side of things, do you see that AI is helping move the sustainability agenda forward?
Absolutely, absolutely, and in fact, kind of research is pretty sketchy. But my guess and my assumption is that AI is a net positive in terms of driving a low carbon economy. Yes, there are issues around energy use. Yes, there is issues around water and exponential growth in data centers to drive an artificial intelligence kind of future. However, the flip side of it is that AI is already helping bring about efficiencies in grid energy, for example. AI is already helping a lot of sustainability professionals better sharpen their work and to bring about again efficiency. So, kind of my guess is that if one were to sit down and to gather all the data, you would find that actually AI, if not now, then in the very future, in the very near future, is actually a positive thing and will drive a low carbon economy.
Yeah, yeah. I think the optimistic view is that it helps to increase the impact and cover more than what it's expending in terms of resource consumption.
That's right. Yes, and the challenge we have at the moment, though, is that reliable data is really sketchy. We just don't have it. So I can't say to you with certainty, with facts and figures, that is the case. My hunch is that that is probably the case, but we don't have the facts and figures, and that's where I think the problem is, and that's where the issue is at the moment.
Right. I think speaking of reliable data and sketchiness, I think greenwashing has been a pretty big topic the last couple of years. And then for large organizations like HubSpot, I'm sure this is something they have to navigate very carefully because sometimes the claims you make are valid. It's just the way that people interpret it, right? Do you have any advice on how companies can avoid this pitfall?
Absolutely. So I remember when I first started at HubSpot, I met with all of our senior leaders and we agreed or tried to align on what role the sustainability function should play within the organization. And we agreed that it should play a significant and central role in helping us become a sustainable company because we want to build a company that future generations would be proud of. Um, we also agreed, more fundamentally, that we would walk the walk. And actually, we're not interested in actually shouting from the rooftops about what we are doing. It's much more important for us to actually deliver substantive projects, programs, initiatives, and then if we feel that there is an opportunity for us to talk about it, absolutely fine. But we're not going to start the other way around. We're not actually going to be kind of shouting from the rooftops around how great we are and how sustainable we are. And yet, when someone opens it up, finds that it's rather hollow. And so that would be my advice. And there's probably one word that sums it up, which is authenticity. You've got to be authentic in terms of what you are saying and avoid as much as possible greenwashing or attempts at greenwashing. A real practical advice is work absolutely work with your marketing team, but be very cautious about that as well, because a marketing team, and not to criticize marketing functions, will automatically look at opportunities for promoting the business in the sustainability field, and you just need to be very cautious about that relationship.
Mhm. And I think it's about a year ago or 2 years ago, the EU banned the use of the term net zero. So there are a few of these initiatives in place, and in Southeast Asia or Asia, broader Asia, that's not quite a thing yet. So companies are very quick to claim net zero carbon neutral. So it's very useful advice.
Well, absolutely. I think the use of words and terminology is really important. I think it wasn't so much the banning of the word net zero. It was actually the use of the phrase carbon neutral that was coming under the spotlight. And if a company was going to use the phrase carbon neutral, it had to explain what it meant by that. So were they becoming neutral as a result of purchasing carbon credits, for example? And the customer would then know. I think some of these phrases that have been, I don't know who invented them or how they've come about, but have kind of lots of kind of various meanings and interpretations. And we go by a very kind of purist definition of net. We don't use carbon neutrality much or hardly ever to describe our work. We do use net zero, but we use it in the way it's defined by the Science Based Target Initiative, which is very precisely defined. And you've got to be kind of validated to actually claim to be working towards a net zero future.
So, I mean, the Science-Based Targets Initiative was also a bit controversial a couple of years ago for the inclusion of carbon credits for Scope 3 reduction. So, is that something that also you keep top of mind and how regulations can be quite fickle?
Yes, absolutely. I think we're seeing it at the moment with all of the changes going on in the US administration and in the EU around a very quick pivot from the spectre of pretty demanding regulation to now most of it being kind of swept away. And so, yes, there is that kind of element of perhaps, fickle. Maybe I wouldn't use that term fickle, but yes, it is the changing nature of it, and it can be quite destabilizing. And so, I think. My advice to individuals is not to be driven by the regulatory framework. Do what you think is right, do what you think is appropriate for your business. The regulation side of things is, in my opinion, you know something that obviously you have to work towards and ensure that you are meeting the requirements, but shouldn't be the driving force of your business. Unfortunately, for many companies, it takes over because it requires a lot of investment and a lot of hard work in order to meet those regulatory requirements. But I think it's just about keeping an eye on not seeing it as the ceiling, but seeing it as the floor. And the ceiling should be way above that.
Got it. Right, yeah, that's great. But going back to the sustainability aspect of things and environmental stewardship. So in a lot of cases, we see that people treat sustainability as being synonymous with environmental sustainability. Do you think that companies are looking enough at the social element of sustainability? If not, like, what's something they can do better?
Yeah, I think it's a kind of a dynamic process. I am starting to see more of a shift towards the social on the part of many companies. Whether that shift is being driven by some of what we're seeing in the kind of the global conversation around sustainability and how environment, sorry, I should say, and the politicization of it, and therefore companies are moving to slightly safer ground in terms of how they articulate their work. I don't know, but certainly, the social element I am seeing a bit more of an uptick on, and I think it's equally important. I think there is a very strong case to be made for companies like HubSpot and others, where actually we are driving significant social change and positivity in the communities in which we live and work, and also driving things like a digital economy. And the benefits that can bring not only from an environment but from a social perspective, kind of digital prosperity and the fact that it knows there are very few physical boundaries to digital prosperity. It's almost an equalizer. So concepts like that, I think, haven't been explored as much as they possibly could be.
And especially for big organizations, going down the supply chain or the value chain, getting this kind of information from suppliers can also be quite difficult. Uh, is this something that you're doing today, or is there a roadmap to getting this done?
Yeah, very much so. So, kind of we work very closely with our suppliers. At the moment, it is very much around environment and some of the kind of basic regulatory requirements around human rights issues, etc. But I think you make a very valid point around looking at slightly deeper social aspects, and whether kind of one area we are exploring is potentially kind of honing in on some of our key suppliers, and whether there's something we can collectively do. Can we work together on a potential social issue that's relevant to all of us? It's very early days. Whether anything comes of it, I don't know, but those are kind of exploratory areas that we are looking into.
I mean, this has all been great. I am also wary of the time. So just curious for people considering a career in sustainability, what do you think are the skills or attributes that are absolutely essential for success?
Sure. Well, I think it's that sense of being driven by a higher purpose. Don't go into it because you think it's well paid and it's going to kind of generate a decent income for you. I'm sure it will do, but you will soon lose your enthusiasm and your interest. There's got to be a higher purpose. You've got to be passionate, as you've already mentioned. I think that's kind of the most important thing. The second I would suggest is an openness to lifelong learning. The field is dynamic, and I'm sure you would have seen it in the time you have been in the industry, and certainly I have, of how it's changed, how the waves have actually been pretty significant. And now you can kind of you can do many various. The waterfront of sustainability has expanded substantially, and it will continue to morph and change and be very dynamic. We just talked about the social side of things as opposed to environment, and I think one needs to be just kind of very open to learning about these new areas of sustainability as they open up, and to embrace those, and to kind of learn about those if you want to succeed in the industry. AI is another kind of huge kind of positive force that's starting to unleash itself in sustainability, and it's about kind of understanding the impact of that. So passion and open to learning. That's what I would say.
Speaking of learning, how do you keep up with all this? There's so much going on right now.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So I have a great team who, kind of, we create time for ourselves to collectively learn from each other. We attend conferences, we attend events, we have abundance of newsletters. We watch things like what you are doing, uh, and so we soak all of those things up. We have a few advisory firms that work with us, and they are constantly organizing events, newsletters, etc. So that's the kind of the way that I keep up, as well as reading more in-depth articles, and just being open to new experiences, new learning opportunities wherever they might come about. A few of my members of staff who are starting their journey in sustainability are also on formal academic courses as well, and I think they have an important role to play as well.
Cool. Yeah, I think there's no shortage of resources. It's just picking the right ones. Yeah. All right. One last question. This is a bit more of a fun question. So, if you had a magic wand that could fix one global environmental issue, what would it be?
Wow. I guess it would be introducing a price on carbon, a a global price on carbon that is realistic. I think that would bring about, a magic one would be to be no carbon whatsoever, but that seems pretty fanciful. But if there was a practical in magic wand that I could wave, it would be let's introduce a global, realistic price on carbon and see how that works out in terms of driving change.
Cool. Yeah, I think that would be something we could possibly see in our lifetime.
Maybe, fingers crossed. I hope so. And you can imagine what the impact of that would be. Kind of when you and I go to a supermarket and buy our goods and services, if they're wrapped in plastic, the cost of that plastic isn't kind of included in terms of its environmental impact. Imagine if it was, and kind of what difference that would make in terms of you and I as consumers, in terms of retailers, in terms of manufacturers. The impact would be huge and substantive.
Yeah, I guess like once the consumer is affected by it, they become more conscious as well in what they buy, what they pick. Absolutely. Great. Thanks a lot, Yogesh, for letting us pick your brain today. It was great having you here. Yeah. Thank you so much.
It's been a delight, and thank you very much for inviting me.